At a major surf
I'm
contest.
15 years old.
You're Grom.
And I'm working at the OP Pro. This is the year that Aki and Tom Curran had the big final.
Yeah.
I was there.
Hey guys, and aloha. It's Mark Sawyer Chu.
And AJ Ellerington.
Together we'll be hosting the Christian Surfers podcast,
where we talk Jesus
and talk with surfers that love Jesus.
Tune in to hear some amazing stories.
Worst case, Trevor.
They'll all be in single file at the door holding credit cards in their hands.
That's what we're praying for. That's what we want. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, brothers and sisters, welcome to the Christian Surfers Talk Story Podcast with Trevor Berge from Degree33 Surfboards. Trevor, we've been trying to get you on this podcast for a long time. You're a very busy guy. You're about to go with Spain. You're about to go to Spain with Darcy next week. So it's early Monday morning here in Carlsbad, California. Trevor making me a nice, how do you say, Nespresso?
Nespresso.
Cheers. Frothy coffee in a Degree33 mug that you can order online. Is it Degree33surfboards.com?
Correct.
Okay. Look at that. Doing my research. Amazing coffee here at the shop in Carlsbad. Come by for some even more amazing fellowship.
Yep.
Break some coffee together and check out some boards. You were just showing me some new boards out in the back. You've got a custom board coming out for Shane, who runs Christian Surfers Carlsbad here. Mm-hmm. Trevor, let's get into some of your story. And thank you again for making time for us early morning.
Absolutely.
I'm glad it's flat. Otherwise, you and I would be like, okay, let's skip the podcast and let's go surf. Yeah. But it's flat, so we're here. And we're here actually doing some work. But you and I have been friends for a long time. I think we met back in the day through Dean Plumley. I was helping out with the Christian Surfers chapter in the South Bay, or might have even been after that. I was on the international board, or still am, and then you helped us out on the U.S. board for a little bit. But tell us how you got involved with Christian Surfers. What was that first point of connection?
Yeah. I think it was somewhere around, trying to think what year that was, 2024. Probably around 2015, I had a good friend of mine and mentor, a guy named Jim Gallagher, who's a pastor in Vero Beach, Florida. He's a Calvary Chapel pastor. He's been a mentor of mine since I was 15, actually. And
how'd you guys meet?
Well, it's a longer story. If you want to hear it, I'll tell you the longer story. But I met, I met Dean through Jim.
Okay.
So Jim was helping with Christian Surfers Bible studies, I think at Surf Expo at the time.
Yes.
And then I was getting involved in the surf industry, kind of new to the industry. And he said, I think you should.
But you were always a surfer.
Correct. I've been a surfer since 1985. And so he said, you need to meet Dean. He's a good guy to know. And so Dean and I became quick friends and just started working together. At the time, I had started a small online surf shop, which you know about. Groundswell Supply. And Dean was helping me get that off the ground, just promoting it, letting people know about it, and we were doing some collaborations on the store.
Yeah.
So I met Dean, and we just became good friends and started praying together. Long distance phone prayer type stuff. Yeah. And that was kind of my first real interaction with Christian Surfers, was directly with the director of Christian Surfers. Yeah, at that time, and now we've had a couple since then. Some amazing people. Obviously, went from Chandler Brownlee to Dean to Jimmy Kaiser, and now Pastor David and Amy Narig up in Huntington. Yeah. And now you're involved with the local chapter here. You go to North Coast Calvary Chapel, which is the covering church for our local church here. Have you always been in Carlsbad? No, actually, I grew up in Huntington. So I started surfing. It's interesting because... You surfed for Bob Hurley back in the day, didn't you? Well, not exactly. So I grew up in Huntington. I started surfing at 15. And the place that I surfed, actually, believe it or not, was called Tower 33 in Bolsa Chica State Beach.
Wow.
And so anyway, at the time...
Jesus irony. I love it.
Exactly. At the time, there were guys like Scott Farnsworth, Mike Harris, Glenn Tilley,
Mike Rips,
Ryan Keenan, Ron Keenan, Brian Fujimoto, Ron Quigley. Like these guys, these guys were the legendary guys in Huntington, like the best surfers in Huntington, surfed where I learned how to surf.
You were part of that generation.
I was one of the Groms when those guys were all competing and getting into surfing. This is 1985.
Yeah, and getting on tour.
Right.
Yeah, QS.
And as it turns out, Aaron Pye from Huntington Surf and Sport used to like to surf there too.
Okay.
So I met Aaron, and Aaron asked me if I'd like to ride for their team, one of the, the Groms on their team. This is,
awesome.
I wasn't really that good a surfer, but I think he knew that I knew a lot of people and he liked the way,
Yeah, and you had the good looks.
And yeah, the good looks is really the main reason.
that helps.
So I was kind of blown away because all my buddies surf better than me. Yeah, I got asked to be sponsored by Huntington Surf and Sport.
HSS.
So
Aaron Pye, sure.
So Aaron Pye, amazing guy, incredible.
Family,
and so
Trevor,
I was
Taylor,
with
Ashland.
Darren Bradley and Chris Saenz and Bobby Lockhart. And I mean, these guys are
legends
in the surfing world. And
you got to be a part of that.
I got to be a part of that. And then I went to work during the summer at Huntington Surf and Sport, the original store.
The one downtown Huntington?
It's not even there anymore.
Okay.
This is the one before they had computers. I went and worked there.
Most of us don't remember those ages, Trevor.
Yeah, I'm dating myself.
You're showing your age here.
But anyway, the cool, fun part of that is, so I was working at Huntington Surf and Sport, and Aaron comes to me and he says, hey, Ian Carnes is running the OP Pro.
Wow.
And he needs a couple volunteers to go help at the OP Pro. Do you want to do it? It's free, but you get to hang out like in all the VIP areas and stuff.
At a major surf
I'm
contest.
15 years old.
You're Grom.
And I'm working at the OP Pro. This is the year that Aki and Tom Curran had the big final. Yeah. I was there.
Was that the year they had the riots as well?
It was the year they had I worked there 2 years, but I was there one of those years. And so I got to be in the VIP area, and I was actually Ian Carnes' personal assistant during the event. So he would say, hey, take this to the judges, go do this, go do that. And I would
God bless you, Ian. We're praying for you, buddy.
Yeah. Ian, he probably would never remember me, okay? But I remember at 15 years old sitting in a small tent with Tom Curran, Shane Horan, I mean the top surfers, Aki, in the world, sitting in a tent together before their finals. It was surreal. So that was my start into surfing. And at the time, I don't even know if Christian surfers was a thing, to be honest. I'd never heard about Christian surfers. Yeah. But it was Christian surfers that invited me to church.
Wow.
So I was one
in Huntington.
Yeah. So I was one of 10 Groms that surfed this spot. None of us were Christians. None of us. And all of a sudden, Ron Keenan's inviting us to Bible studies, and Jim Gallagher's inviting us to, Calvary Chapel. And so over the course of probably a year, there was about 10 of us that became Christians. And we were all just kind of started getting in Bible studies and going to, Calvary Chapel and, Costa Mesa. Yeah. And so it was an incredible time. And I was really fortunate. There was a guy, most people don't know who he is, but there was a guy that was one of the pro surfers in Huntington named Ron Quigley. He was actually, as far as I understand it, one of Bob Hurley's best friends. He was one of the Hurley designers, so he designed a lot of the artwork. One of the original wave designs that Billabong did back in the day. This is Billabong. That was Ron's design.
Wow.
So he was a painter and a designer, and he surfed in the OP Pro. He was a world-class surfer. Unbelievable guy. Well, he took me under his wing during that time. So he would take me surfing. I'm 15, Ron.
And he was a believer.
Ron was a very strong believer. Unbelievable guy. Probably the most incredible guy I've ever met in my life. Yeah.
Still around?
No, and I'll tell you his story. So Ron kind of took me under his wing when I was 15. He was in early 20s, single guy, surfed it pretty much every day, artist, worked for Hurley, worked for Billabong, not Hurley at the time, it was Billabong. He was a designer for O'Neill at the time as well, and Instinct as well, so he did a lot of surf
Sean Thompson.
industry design. Yeah. And he would pick me up. We'd go surf river jetties. We'd go have
RJs.
pizza. We'd, shoot pool together. And he just
kind of mentored you.
He just became Jesus with skin on to me. Like, I was like, wow, like God is real. Like, I know God is real. This guy is, there's people just aren't like this,
Yeah.
And so I was really blessed to get to spend
love.
about a year getting to know Ron, becoming friends. He mentored me.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to turn your phone off silent. I think Jesus is blowing you up.
Yeah.
I'll let you do it.
Yeah. So he was a huge part of who I am today, actually, as a Christian. And
building your foundation.
Yeah. And so...
At 15 years old.
Yeah, and so him and I went and surfed river jetties one day, went and shot pool, had pizza, had a great time, and like 3 days later, I find out he drowned in a pool.
Really?
He was actually teaching young kids how to swim, and just holding his breath basically, and held his breath for so long that he died underwater.
Wow.
And so it was a huge blow to us and to me in particular, because I was quite close to him, and I never forgot what Ron did for me. And it was just truly the first real tangible example I had seen of real Christ-like discipleship, where he had poured into a younger guy, and so
just like you do now with the younger men, the kids.
Yeah, and that's really like a big reason why I'm in the surf industry today is, a lot of it has to do with like what Ron did for me, like the influence that he had and the way that here's a kid that like had problems at home. Like I was a kid in school that was getting in trouble and in the principal's office, like had all kinds of family problems, stuff going on that was really lost my brother to a drug addiction and an overdose and, alcohol in the home and just a lot of crazy stuff. And, here I am, get into surfing, and all of a sudden now I'm studying the Bible with a bunch of guys that, I respect and love, and, they're pouring into me. So it was... If you've seen the Noah's Ark movie, it was kind of like the Noah's Ark thing, but it was really in Huntington Beach, in the mid-'80s. And the cool thing is a lot of these guys now that were part of that older mentor group are now pastors and leaders and, unbelievable guys. The
guys that you kind of grew up with in that generation.
A lot of them have their own families. They're walking with the Lord still, and I still keep in touch.
Super cool.
With several of them. Mike Harris is another one.
Pastor Mike.
He's a pretty well-known photographer now that shoots
Mike
at
Harris
the Wedge.
Visuals.
Yep. And he's a pastor as well. So
Calvary Chapel, Huntington Beach, right?
I think it was Seaside or something
Beachside,
like that. Beachside.
Yeah.
So thanks to all you guys. If any of you guys get to see the podcast, you guys made a huge difference to me.
There you go. Fruit of your labor right here.
Pretty much 35 plus years ago.
In the making.
I wouldn't be sitting here today, honestly. I don't believe I would be here today, like alive, if it wasn't for what those guys did at that time. And now I look at the new generation of Christian surfers, Shane Jobbins and, guys like that. And I'm going, David Nierig, and I'm going, these are the next generation of guys that, that impacted me, and they're doing the same thing.
For the next
they're
Trevor
pouring
Berge.
in. They're pouring into these 15-year-old me's, so that they can, grow in Christ and they can have a future and they can have purpose, And that's really the whole thing. It's like it's fun to surf and we all love it and we're all addicted to it. But at the end of the day, like we need to have purpose.
Beyond that, yeah. Surfing isn't our true savior. You can't fill the void, the God-shaped hole. That's in all of us from Jesus. That's such a cool story, Trev. I've known you for so long. I don't think I knew those details about you, and I look forward to meeting Ron in heaven. And for you to see him again. And such a great story and testimony, real life story of how Christian surfers works, and our mission statement to reach every surfer, and that every surfer would have the opportunity to know and follow Jesus.
Surfing communities are not all the same around the world. Often, some of the world's best surf breaks are home to the most disadvantaged communities. We believe in the power of the global surfing community to make positive, long-term changes to beach communities around the world. By harnessing the resources of the international surf community, we are able to make a global impact. Using surfing as a platform to connect, Groundswell exists to meet the needs of under-resourced communities and offer tangible hope. Together, Groundswell Aid and our partner projects serve as a way to infuse love and hope within surfing communities.
So at 50, that's kind of where you got your foundation for your faith, with those guys pouring into you. And from there, what was the next step for you? Where'd you go after that?
Yeah, so that period of time was like, it's like the scripture that talks about the seeds that go into the good soil and the seeds that don't.
Yeah.
And, one by one, my friends started falling away from the Lord. Like they just stopped coming to church. They'd get a girlfriend. They'd start partying, drugs. All this stuff started coming. And
distractions
the
from
winds
the enemy,
of was
world.
blowing in these seeds of sin, and so these people I was in community with all of a sudden were starting to fall away. And so it was a really tough thing because I felt like I hung in there for a long time, but then I ended up getting sucked in as well. And
with all your friends.
within a period of a couple years, we were all like in the world.
Yeah.
And so, which is really
Prodigal son.
Yeah, just a sad story. And most of us had, home life wasn't great.
Broken families.
Just challenging stuff. And I love my parents, and but the home life, we had it didn't support where I was going as a born again Christian.
Right.
And it was like a struggle. And so anyway, long and the short of it is, I walked away from the Lord for almost 10 years.
Wow.
So
how'd you come back?
It pretty much a rock bottom experience. I was, I'd been kicked out of my home. I was, I was heavily involved in drugs. I started using drugs. My girlfriend, who I'd been dating for several years, actually broke up with me.
Okay.
And kind of, at the time we were actually living together. This is in my 20s. And she broke up with me, and I just got to a place of like a rock bottom place where, I just didn't have a desire to keep going. And my friends who I used to hang out with and party with, I wasn't hanging with them anymore because when I got this girlfriend, I kind of separated from my friends, and then my girlfriend breaks up with me. So, so it was a pretty lonely time and really, just broken, and heartbroken over this relationship. Somebody I thought I loved, leaves and didn't have a good relationship with my parents at the time. And, I'm just struggling to make a living and all that kind of stuff. And at the time I was trying to start, I was going to school. I was at Cal State Fullerton, and I was trying to start this small auto parts business at the time. And I was living off of my credit card, like literally didn't have any income. I was just using my credit card to survive.
Yeah.
And
been there.
pretty scary time, And I got to a place where I remember just like premeditating taking my life. And I was laying in bed one night, and I just thought through, like, this is how I'm going to do it. And then I started walking through it mentally, like, this is the way.
Yeah.
And
Satan had convinced you.
Yeah. I was like, I have nothing else to live for. My family's, turned. My girlfriend left me.
I got nobody left.
All these things. My friends, the whole thing, and I was super lonely. And I was actually planning one night to do it. Super late at night, I was laying in my bed, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do it, And how I was gonna do it was I was gonna drive my car off a cliff.
Wow.
And at the time, I was living in Huntington, and I knew of a cliff area in Laguna where I could have done it. I knew.
Right. I was going to say HB Cliffs, but I was like, I don't know if that's actually high enough.
No, I
might just end up with.
I knew the area where I would do it if I did.
Laguna Cliffs, much higher. Yeah,
and it's crazy. This is where I was at, and thinking back now.
But this is real because a lot of people struggle with this, Trevor. So thank you for sharing this because I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, and I don't talk about it. It's honestly like coming in here this morning. I didn't plan on talking about it. So
God had a plan, and I think God's going to use your story to reach a lot of people.
Thank you, man. No, it's all glory to Him. And so it was, honestly, I was gonna do it, and I fell asleep, thinking about it.
Praise
I was
God.
like working myself up. I was trying to get myself worked up to go get in my car and do it, and I got tired and fell asleep.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next morning alive.
Right.
And
Thankfully.
so shortly after that, I remember laying in bed just being really, at the end of my rope again. And I just said something to the effect of, God, I don't even know if you're real. But if you are, I need you to show up because I'm not going to make it.
Wow. Yeah, you're just brutally
I need
honest.
you to reveal yourself to me.
That was your prayer.
That was my prayer. Nothing happened. Just kept doing my thing, whatever I was doing daily during that time. Shortly after that, there was a mechanic that worked on my car. He's a mobile mechanic. He's a on-fire Christian, born again, really bold Christian. And I kind of used to ignore him because I wasn't walking with the Lord. And he was a nice guy, a good mechanic, but I'm like, I don't want to talk about God.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about eternity.
Yeah. So shortly after this, kind of rock bottom place of like premeditating taking my life.
Yeah.
I get this call. It's like a Thursday night, and it's this mechanic guy that I know, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow night?" I said, "Nothing." And he goes, "Would you want to go to the Harvest Crusade with me?" And I'm like,
Great
what's that? And he's like, "Oh, it's music, and there's speakers and whatever." And my pride kind of started to make the decision, and I was like, I was kind of waffling on the idea. He goes, "Come on, fun, it's fun. You'll like it. It's nothing better to do." And so I'm like, "All right, I'll go." I kind of like went, half-hearted, so I went and.
But you went.
Yep.
Praise God.
This is 1994.
Wow.
So this is 9 years after I had first given my life to Christ.
That's the year I graduated high school. You're way ahead of me. I wasn't even there yet.
Yeah.
You should have invited me.
So I went to the Harvest Crusade with my friend Sean, who's still the best man at my wedding, still incredible, good buddy that we pray regularly.
So keep in touch.
Wonderful Armenian guy, incredible guy.
And this is in Anaheim.
This is in Anaheim. I'm living in Huntington.
Okay.
We go to the Harvest Crusade, and Greg Laurie gives the message, gives the invitation, and I'm sitting in my chair, and Greg's going, if you need Jesus, come on down, and all this stuff. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I used to go to Calvary Chapel. I know about Jesus, I know about God, the pride, and thinking, here I am suicidal, but yet I'm not willing to give my life over to Christ,
Right.
And so my friend, as bold as he is, the invitation happens, he goes, "Come on, we're going." And he grabbed me and he walked me down there.
He pulled you out of the chair.
He walked me, almost had to drag me down.
Wow.
So I went down, I prayed, and it was like, it was real, but, I just wasn't gung-ho going down. And then I remember the next day getting up and just felt like nothing had changed and everything was the same, But they gave me like one of these New Believers Bibles and, the Ben Born Again Believers Bible. Great Glory does the comic book type Bibles. And
breaking down the gospel.
Anyways, little by little, I started like reading that. And then like 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from somebody from Harvest, and they're like, "Hey, how are you doing in your walk with the Lord?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm not really doing much, And they're like, "Well, you should go to church and, start praying, can I pray for you?" And I was like, "Oh, little by little, I started
amazing to have that follow-up.
I started, Harvest is incredible ministry. And so little by little, I started to take it seriously. And then I ended up at a neighbor who was working close to me, where I worked. and he invited me to a Bible study with a lot of people my age in the Valley, actually. And I started going to a Bible study every week in the Valley. We were driving an hour one way to go to a Bible study.
That's crazy.
Every
From
week.
Huntington
to LA, to the Valley.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
It started with 5 of us, and it grew to like 50 people in this guy's house in like 6 months. This guy, Brian Cashman, who is now a pastor of a church in the Valley.
Amazing.
You know, incredible guy, married with like, I think he's got 6 kids, still a friend.
Praise God.
Incredible guy, but he was a Bible study leader and a worship leader. And so I kind of fell in love, I fell in love with Jesus. I went all in, and I just started really getting serious about my walk with the Lord. That was 94.
Okay.
And then, but I was still heartbroken over this relationship, you know, like I was still missing this girl, you know, and I started to pray, and I said, God, if you could just bring her back to me, that would just be a huge blessing. You know, I kept praying for that, and many months went by, but I was still really, struggling with that. You know, I was saved. You know, I was walking with the Lord. I had new life. I was finding new joy, new relationships. You know, starting to read my Bible, starting to pray, but I'd still had this broken heart. You know.
Yeah.
And
that's real.
You know, and then this girl who we'd broken up, she'd call me one time, and she's like, hey, you know, it just sounded like she was going to get married, basically, to another guy. She had moved out of state. And so I was like, you know, it's done. You know, it's over. And so I just kept praying to God, and I said, God, you know, maybe I'll never see her again. Like if that happens, this is the crazy part of the story. So I went out with my friends in LA one night. We went out to hear some live music, and you know, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving home on the 5 freeway from LA, and my friend is in the car with me. He passed out, he was tired, and I just felt this heaviness in my heart, like to pray for this person, you know? And so I just started praying.
Pray for your friend in the car?
No, pray for my ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
And I said, God, maybe I'll never see her again. If you don't bring her back to me, I totally understand. But I just want her to come to know you. Wow. I just want her to be in heaven.
Yeah.
I want her to, you know, be saved.
Yeah.
You know, I was just pouring out my heart to the Lord in my car. You know, it's just like this heaviness for her, you know. And so prayed that prayer, and then went home. And then the next day, I'm at work, and I get a phone call from a woman. And I'm, you know, I'm like, who is, I don't recognize the voice. And I said, who is this? And she's like, this is Darcy. And I'm like, Darcy? And we hadn't talked in like a year.
Wow.
And so she tells me the story that she's in Arizona.
Yeah.
I'm in California.
And you guys have been broken up?
We've been broken up for the better part of a year. I haven't talked to her in a very long time. And she says, I was in my car, I was driving home last night after going out with some girlfriends, and she said, I felt the presence of God in my car. And she said, he was like present in my car, and he spoke to my heart, and he said to me, you know, you need to get a hold of Trevor as soon as possible. She went home that night. She opened the Bible. I'd sent her a Bible for Christmas, you know, kind of just mailed it to her and sent her a little note.
The ultimate
and
Christmas gift.
She opened the Bible that I'd sent her for Christmas, and she gave her life to the Lord in the middle of the night.
Wow.
It's the same night that I was praying for her salvation. And we're in 2 different states.
Yeah.
So she calls me and tells me this, and I'm just kind of like, you know, what is going on? Like, this is
because she was going to get married to another guy.
Well, she was dating, and
Someone
you know,
else,
she had kind of a new life, you know.
Yeah.
And
there's very little chance of you guys.
There was nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing with us. And she said, it was like there was a wall in her heart, and it just fell down. Mm-hmm. And she said, I didn't even know that I loved you anymore. And she said it was like all this love for you just like came back, like, you know. And so we started talking, started praying together via the phone, you know. This is before the internet was, before you could do a Zoom call, right?
Pre-Instagram
And
days.
so we started chatting and talking, and after probably a month or two of that, we're like, let's meet up. So she flew out to California. She spent a week in California, and we just had an incredible time as believers, like new creation.
So you guys were back together again.
Yeah.
But this time both born again Jesus followers, whereas you guys were together before, but living together in sin and just going about life.
Exactly. We lived together in sin for 7 months.
Wow.
And it wasn't my plan to do that, but I got kicked out of my house.
Right.
That's another long story. But anyway, the point of it is we did it all wrong.
Yeah. But you did it all right the second time.
And then the Lord just said, hey, I want to make new, like what you guys have done, I want to make it new.
God gave you guys a second chance.
New creation,
Yeah.
And so we got together in February. February 22nd was the date we got together.
Wow.
When she came back, and I know that because she had told me that was the date of our first date when we had originally met. So God actually put us back together.
Crazy.
On the same date of our first date as non-believers.
Yeah.
So then as believers, it's just the way God orchestrated things. And then that year, in August, I proposed to her. And then a year later in September, we got married. That was 1996. Last night, we celebrated our 28th wedding anniversary.
Wow. And that's why you guys are going to Spain.
Yes. Well, that's a birthday gift. But anyway, long and the short of it is 28 years of marriage, 3 wonderful kids, and just God's put me in this amazing community, and it's so much better than I deserve, and it's all glory to Him. I could not have orchestrated. I had nothing to do with it. Like to God be the glory, and so
only God could come up with something like that.
Exactly.
If you want to talk about WSL unscripted, you can't get more unscripted than Jesus.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the story, and that's we haven't had a chance to really tell you all that stuff, but
I think I knew little pieces of that from you, sharing your testimony with me prior, but that's such a powerful testimony. Everyone's got their story, but I feel like people really need to hear that story, Trevor, about you and Darcy, because again, you just can't make something like that up, It's just something straight out of the Holy Spirit of Hollywood.
Yeah.
The plan that He had for you and Darcy, and she's such a amazing wife. We had both you and Darcy at our wedding, which was such an honor for us, and so stoked to kind of see your guys' journey. And now she's working with you on the business here at Degree33. And you guys got a beautiful family, and you guys are involved with church here and Christian Surfers. You guys have been such amazing supporters, and thank you for going there, Trevor. I know that wasn't easy, but thank you for being real and just sharing from your heart. Let's switch gears, I guess, to go back to Christian Surfers. You've been around and helping out in so many ways. You talked about the New Believers Bible that you got there from Harvest, and now you're helping us with distribution for the latest Christian Surfers Bible edition. And you're doing merch for Christian Surfers as well. Housing all our inventory down here in Carlsbad. So we don't have to go rent a public storage somewhere, and helping us ship out things and distribute things across the country. Tell us a little bit about the brand and how you kind of, you mentioned it earlier with you were kind of going into the auto business, but you were always a surfer, and how you how you kind of ended up back in surfing. You started there at HSS with Aaron Pye and working, some big contests that are surrounded by some iconic legends of our sport. But how did you kind of get into the business full time, and what's going on now with Degree33? We'd love to know how we can be praying for you and following you, both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
Dream with me, what if every surfer had access to a surf-friendly church?
I sensed there was this wave coming. I kept bumping into Christian surfers, people that were planting or involved in Sandy Feet Friendly Church.
But in those places where there is no church, somebody has to step in, and we're answering that call.
This is what's wonderful about pioneering something new. So what's wonderful about starting a church where there aren't any other Christians. Because I can't do a big flyer run. I don't have any of those options. The only way our church is going to grow is through people getting saved. God's got to turn up and start saving some people. That's his job. All I got to do is just be truthful to who he is, follow him. But he's kind of in the business of turning up and showing off. That's what God loves to do. He's the I am.
So, as I mentioned, I was trying to start a auto parts business. This is in the, early 90s. And eventually got that thing off the ground, and it ended up becoming a very successful business. We had it for 18 years, and we had a warehouse. We were manufacturing classic car parts, actually. And went really well, had it, grew to, multi-million-dollar business, worldwide, sales, and
Amazing.
It was doing great. And then, but I was just kind of at a place where I had no margin, no bandwidth. I had about 25 full-time employees, and I had no free time. It was just maxed.
It was all-consuming.
Yeah, it was. And for the better part of 2 years, I was just praying and asking God, I just need I need to break from this. This is insane. And I had, at the time, my kids were still pretty young, so, you got all this success happening.
Yeah.
And then you've got your little kids that need you and want you. It's like it's all happening at the same time, and
they need their dad.
It's tough, it's really tough. So
I'm right there right now.
You get it, and so the best time I could have had with my kids, a lot of it I ended up spending at the office, and I just,
you were working.
I have some regrets about that, but I paid, or I should say I prayed for a couple years, and I ended up getting a large company, actually the largest aftermarket auto parts company in the country from Florida, reached out to me and they said, hey, we want to expand into what you're doing. Would you be interested in talking about us acquiring your company? And that was kind of like my answer to prayer. I'm like, wow, I had no idea there was an exit for me. And so in 2010, we ended up selling the business to this larger company.
Amazing.
We sold it, and then I took 3 years off.
You just semi-retired and went on some surf trips.
It was great. Just kind of reconnected with my kids. Spent a lot of time with my wife. Did some really great, building relationships. And during that period, I was starting to ask God, okay, God, I'm 40 years old. I just sold my company. What next? What do I do now? And obviously I wasn't going to retire, and so I started praying, and God gave me a vision for this company called Groundswell Supply, which was basically like a curated surf shop, online though, because I had a lot of experience with online e-commerce type business. And
from the auto industry.
So I created this store, and it was a really fun project. I probably spent 5 times what I should have getting started. Just didn't know what I didn't know, because I didn't understand the surf industry.
Yeah.
Coming out, being a surfer, but not understanding the industry.
Yeah, and switching.
And what I learned quickly was the surf industry is way harder than I thought it would be. And, it was kind of humbling, actually. And so I spent a couple years building that store and grew it to, it's a very small store, but I was doing it from home and it was fun.
Yeah.
But I just realized this is not going to be like a career. It's not sustainable to with the store. So
right.
We started praying again, and honestly, I wasn't like trying to stay in the surf industry. I was almost ready to say, like, I'm done with it. I'll just be a surfer. And so,
but I don't want to work with them.
Yeah, so we prayed and looked at a bunch of different things, and just was looking at a management position with a company and different franchises and other things, and about that time, after about a year of really putting time into looking at things and exploring options, this company, Degree33, came up for sale.
Wow.
And they were the first company to actually sell a surfboard direct to consumer online. They were the first surfboard brand to do this.
Yeah. Way before everyone else.
2006.
Yeah. This early days.
Yeah. They had gotten a foundation online. They had a good presence. They had a strong customer base. They had a brand. Phenomenal shaper, Bill Menard, 50 plus year veteran shaper. And people loved the brand.
Yeah.
And so we prayed.
Did it mean the name, is it Degree33 in San Diego? Is that
it's
kind of
the latitude,
Okay.
and so North County from Del Mar to Oceanside is all 33 degrees latitude. Okay. So we prayed hard on it, and God just gave us green lights on the whole thing. Wow. And so here I am back in the surf industry.
Again, 3.0.
Yeah, so that's how we got here, and basically my wife and I spent the last 6+ years, rebuilding, the brand, updating, reworking all the designs with the shaper, reworking all the construction of the boards, doing all new layups for all the glassing, all the design stuff has been completely revamped, to where I feel like we have
You've done a full makeover of the brand.
Really huge improvements over the last several years. And then we've grown the customer list, and we've done a lot of updates on the website. If you get a chance to take a look at the website, we've put a lot of work into that. And then we have a strong walk-in presence too.
Here in Carlsbad.
Yep, and then we're just getting into it. I can't really talk about all the details, but we're getting into more where we're making boards for other brands. So because we have the technology, we have the experience, we have the relationships, we're starting to make boards for other brands as well. Yeah. So, which has been really cool.
Kind of white label, private label.
Yeah. We've been trying to
get to do that.
Yeah. And we're launching. We're trying to launch into Central America right now. So we've got a partner over there for. We're going to start with El Salvador, and then we're hoping to do El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. Yeah, all through this one partner over there.
Praise God.
So had a meeting actually with Marcelo from Puro Surf not too long ago about working with them. Yeah. So
love Marcelo.
Marcelo's an incredible guy. If you haven't seen Puro Surf, look it up online. We went there a few months ago.
And Christian Surfers El Salvador.
Yeah.
We got the shirt.
Yeah, they're
not a bad business
people.
Trip for Trevor.
Got the best ways of my life in El Salvador. So
there you go.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw some photos you showed me last week when we brought the playa board foamy for Amaya and just ripping on those rights, Trevor.
Yeah, Punta Roca was all time. It was 6 to 8 foot and just perfect.
Yeah. Well, that training session at J-Bay with Roy a couple years back probably helped.
Yeah, that helped too.
Well, I met you when we first met. You were doing the Groundswell Supply project, and love that. I remember getting a couple boards from you. Bill Johnson, love that board. I still got in the Canaries. Really good high performance shortboard. He was shaping, I think, for CJ and Damien at that time.
Yep.
Got my first mini Simmons from you, Wegner.
Yeah.
Bought some eyewear from you, some Woodrose, and I know I've got a vintage Groundswell shirt with me somewhere, and Roy's got one too. It's in Florida. It's our house in Florida. Otherwise, I would have worked for the podcast. A little throwback, but praise God, congratulations on what you've done with the brand and Degree33. I remember dealing and talking to the old owner, from the surf media side, and I had no idea that you guys were talking about acquiring the business.
Yeah.
But it's seeing your journey spiritually and professionally has been just fascinating. How can people follow the brand now, and what are some of the other projects you got coming up? I know we were just talking about this. You've launched the Degree33 Surf Club membership here. Tell us a little bit about that. And I'm on your email list, even though I'm across the country.
Yeah.
I've heard you mentioned Florida a few times in our podcast, and so we'd love to have you and Darcy come stay with us. I know Lydia and I believe, stayed with you guys either as newlyweds or maybe before we were even married. I think I slept in your upstairs and she slept downstairs, and it was good. You kept us accountable, which I appreciate. But we'd love to return that favor. But what's going on with the brand now? You mentioned some other collabs, but I know you've got a lot of beautiful merch. You've got a great email list. I love the way you guys do your marketing. You've got some. You've had some great ambassadors and surfers on your team, such as Shane Jobbins from Christian Surfers Carlsbad. And how can people subscribe and follow you on social media and on the website? Yeah,
I mean, I think the best thing is just to check out the website, Degree33Surfboards.com.
Awesome.
And,
beautiful site.
Email's great. We do a lot of that. We write a lot of content around surfing, so it's like, our whole focus is really like to be like guides for people and educate. So like surf etiquette's a big subject around here. We want people getting into surfing to get into surfing the right way.
But to learn
versus
properly.
Just showing up at the beach with their new board and just paddling into a crowded lineup.
Which happens a lot.
Right, so we're writing, we're doing videos. Like we did a video with Damo about surf etiquette. We've had
Damien on the podcast.
And
Marcelo.
So the idea is like, we know there's going to be a lot of new surfers coming in to buy the kind of boards we have. We want to send them out, in a way where they're understanding like, hey, this is a place that you need to respect the people that are already there, and this is how you learn, before you get in the water.
Yeah, so giving value and service.
That's a lot of what we do. So we're writing on, progression. We get people come in all the time, first-time surfers, or maybe they just started and they want a 6-foot shortboard, and we're like, we have to talk them out of it.
Wow.
And they're dead set. This is what I want. It's like,
it's what they see, and you're like, that's not the best board to learn.
So we're, we're really big with, longboards are huge for us. We're huge with like mid-lengths have been huge for us. We do a lot with fishes and like groveler type shapes. And then we do shortboards, but it's not a big focus because it's a smaller part of what we do. But then we do a lot of these like hybrid soft tops. So they're like a fiberglass epoxy board, but they have like a soft skin on the top, no wax.
The one you just lent us for
similar to that.
Really
like,
solid construction.
Like hybrid boards is what we call them. So those are great because they're safer than a regular board, and you don't need wax. So that's been a big thing for us. It's been really popular for us.
Easier to keep the car clean.
People love that. But so that's kind of a lot of what we do is education and trying to help people on the journey.
Serving the community.
It's really about the progression journey. Like start here, finish there. You start big and you move down. With surfing, right? So maybe it's 9 foot, and then maybe it's 7'2", and then maybe it's 6'2", and then maybe it's 5'10".
Trevor,
whatever.
Hoping you get me off the 12-footer one day. So,
so we do a lot of that coaching with people, and we actually have our own surf coaching that we do through the business through our store.
You're building community.
We're building community. We do a lot of partnerships. I actually should have mentioned that we're doing a lot with. Boys to Men mentoring too. The 100 Wave Challenge.
Great guy.
BoysToMen.org if you guys haven't heard of it, but they're doing mentoring for about 1,000 at-risk and marginalized youth in San Diego. So they go into the schools and they sit in circles with these young guys that need father figures. And they pour into them.
What Ron was to you when you were 15.
Exactly.
Full circle.
Exactly. So youth mentoring is a huge part of what we do, and the way that we support that is we surf 100 waves in one day, and we raise money through the 100 Wave Challenge to be able to do that. So our team has been, to date has raised over
as a brand.
As a brand, Degree33 team, and that's not me; it's our team has raised $350,000 for youth mentoring.
Yeah.
So it's been
Praise
a huge part, like a huge part of our purpose and what we do.
Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Brett Morley and Damian Hobgood on the team, and such a great
Damian's
crew.
been part of the event. Sean Thompson's been part of the event.
Yeah.
Lots of really well-known surfers. Dean Soderberg and, just great guys are part of it. But,
Thank you for supporting that organization and Joe. Such a great thing that he does, and to come full circle, the way that you were impacted in your youth and giving that, back to the community.
Exactly. I believe in it. I get it. I know what it's like to not have somebody pouring into you, and to have these guys, literally 1,000 plus of them that are getting men pouring into them is unbelievable.
Well, our world is more broken than ever and needs Jesus more than ever. And I recently did the spiritual boot camp, Wild at Heart, with John Eldridge. And you can really trace almost all the problems of the world back to fatherlessness. Or lack of a father. Or the heart of a father. So getting goosebumps just thinking about that. But Trevor, you have an amazing brand now. You've poured your blood, sweat, and tears into with Darcy and your family. You have some beautiful product and boards. We were just in the back there. You were showing me some of the new blades, and we just recently borrowed the ply to surf with our 2-year-old Amaya on it. Perfect board for the Groms and the kids, and that construction just felt solid. I've got a few boards for you in the past. So guys, if you aren't Christian surfers and want to support a brother in Christ and family that has been a big part of Christian surfers for a long time, please support Degree33. You've been part of the tribe and the family. Thank you for all that you do for our communities, Trevor. Appreciate you just going there today with your story and your testimony and sharing that. And if you want to surf 100 waves with Trevor in one day, that's more than I catch in a year.
It only takes 5 to 6 hours, so you're
there you go. I think my average session nowadays at 48 is probably 30 minutes, depending on how crowded it is. But hopefully we could grab a surf while I'm still in town. Thank you for making time for us on the Christian Surfers Talk Story podcast.
Thank you.
Like, subscribe to Degree33Surfboards.com. We're going to send this podcast to Joe Segerson and Marcelo and Sean Thompson and everybody. And then please follow and subscribe to Christian Surfers as well if you like what we're talking about. Trevor Berge, God bless you.
Thank you, brother.
Enjoy Europe, enjoy Spain, and keep up the great work.
All right, appreciate it.
Love you, brother. God bless you.
Yes.